What is going on, everybody? Wally back with another video, and in today's video we're talking about scout rifles, scout rifle rerolls, and all the good stuff that goes with it. Now I'm going to be covering the rerollable scout rifles in House of Wolves. So that's going to be mainly the 0-point VOC variants, the Hygiene Noblesse, the 1-1 Synthesite, the Deadshot Luna, the NL Shadow, the Gillian's Demise, and a couple others that I may have missed, like the High Rolled Soldier, the Salvation, so on and so forth. So I'm going to give you a basic rundown of what I think is the best for these weapons in general, how to use them, what they make sense sort of in PvE and in PvP. I will not be covering every single one, mainly because I don't have them all, but they all fall into certain variants, which I'll label out for you. Starting with it, for PvE, I'm going to recommend that you run higher impact scouts, so the 42 rate of fire or below for maximum effectiveness in DPS. You want to be hitting for at least 900 to 1k per critical shot on normal enemies or non-major enemies. This allows you to effectively 2 to 3 shot them or help your teammates do the same. PvP is more about personal preference, and I'm sure I'll get a myriad of comments about how good certain players are with the slow firing scouts like the Scholar or Gillians. Now, in my experience, they are great, but I rarely get killed by them in PvP matches, even in the Combined Arms playlist, which has the larger set matches like Skyshock, Bastion, and First Light. Now, maybe I just have a small head, or maybe I don't see them when I play, but I personally will not recommend them to you because of their slow rate of fire, which often leads to brutal repercussions, which is your own death, and it's usually due to missing the first or second shots. The 37 rate of fire variants are the 0-point and the other VOC type weapons, and they're a good standard to run in PvP, but again, you may oftentimes lose fights due to missed shots or more simply being outclassed due to their slow rate of fire. The 42 to 52 rate of fire scouts are a lot different. The 42 scouts are still a 4 shot to the head, but the 52 does not guarantee that 4 shot to the head due to player armor or stats. So I think that the 42 rate of fire variants are the perfect model of what a PvP scout rifle should be. They've got good handling, enough rate of fire to act like an old school Suros, and enough recoil to make you pay for missed or sloppy shooting. So for PvE, the perks again are largely dependent on you, the player, and the weapon you're currently using. In essence, I'm going to always argue that the best roll is full auto, some sort of stability barrel, and firefly. However, it can be argued that you don't need full auto on the 27 or 37 rate of fire scout rifles, which I would be inclined to agree with you, but you need to look at the first column rolls to get a better understanding of why full auto is oftentimes the most viable to run. In the first column rolls, you have Icarus, which is a gimmick perk, hot swap, battle run on triple tap, replenish rodeo, luck in the chamber, full auto, and a couple others, but only a few really still stand out. Remember, this is my personal experience here, so if you have a set that you like, you do not have to listen to me, and I'd honestly recommend that you don't. Beyond a rodeo front roll, which again is largely unnecessary in my opinion, mainly due to the fact that certain scouts allow you to compensate for visual recoil between shots, the internal cooldown of the scout rifle is in effect here. You can't fire faster than that rate of fire will allow. So on the 27 to 37 rate of fire variants of scouts, it makes little to no sense to roll into rodeo when you, the player, can and should be able to compensate for the visual recoil. Full auto is the most useful on the 37 to 52 rate of fire scouts, simply because in my practice, scouts have a certain rhythm. You miss the rhythm, you jam the gun. Now I'm using air quotes there on jam because technically you are not jamming the weapon, but you are resetting the timed value in which you can go through a full clip, effectively slowing your DPS. Now full auto again is not needed on the 27 rate of fire variants simply because the time between shots is so high that missing the rhythm or spamming the trigger often have no effect on the overall damage. Just to clarify here, full auto does not increase the weapon's rate of fire in any way. You can't go any faster than the internal cooldown will allow. It simply allows you to maintain the maximum rate of fire without missing a beat or slowing shots per clip in a given time. Triple tap makes little to no sense, since it's based on a timer after 3 headshots. Now on most scouts in PvE, your opponent will drop after 2 of those headshots, meaning you have to scan for the 3rd shot, which can often mean missing or rushing the shot to gain advantage of triple tap. Where the perk stands out, however, is against bosses or non-moving high armor targets. There is an argument there for it, but I honestly am not going to recommend it to you, the player. Replenish is another no-go, at least on a primary, where ammo is abundant. doesn't make that much sense to run it. Hot Swap and Icarus are sort of gimmick perks. Now, while the air hip fire is terrible for scouts, running a perk to offset this doesn't make too much sense. There is a counter argument to run Angel of Light, which is a specific Sunsinger perk, and Icarus to gain maximum effectiveness. But if you want to make yourself an easy target in PvP or take yourself out of cover in PvE, be my guest. I am not going to recommend it to you. Do not run Hot Swap. You're not a potato. You can aim your weapon with the LT button on your Xbox controller without having a perk that's designed to increase weapon accuracy. Luck in the Chamber is largely based on number of shots per clip. Most scouts sit at about 13 plus rounds, so you have a 1 in 13 plus chance to see this proc. Not great, statistically speaking, since most players, myself included, often reload after the initial gunfight, win at roughly 6 to 7 shots. Hopefully, you win that at about 4 to 5 headshots, depending on the amount of headshots you actually hit. Battle Runner is a bit interesting here, so I'm tempted to run it one day to give you a more in-depth opinion on it, but the way I look at it, with scouts, you're typically at range, or mid to long range, while utilizing cover. Now, getting a kill, then moving quicker sounds great on paper, but in practice, it only seems super situational. Pretty much leaves only full auto and rodeo as the go-to front rolls. Middle column rolls are a bit different, and there's a lot to go through here, so I'm going to give you the best impression based on my personal experience. So AP rounds don't really work well in PvP, at least on the primary scouts. Quick draw is great, but single point sling is arguably better. Snapshot is sort of cool, but really is highly wasteful. High caliber rounds make sense in PvE. It allows you to stagger your alien opponents much easier, and I'm sure there's an argument out there for explosive rounds. But in my personal experience, I'll take a stability barrel and a high caliber round over explosive rounds. You may not feel the same way, so I recommend running you are most comfortable with in both PvE and PvP. Barrel rolls are probably the most important when it comes to scouts. They have the ability to change how these weapons operate in the game. I will always recommend hand-laid stock, braced frame, and if you have to get it, small bore. Stability is always the name of the game in PvP. Range modifiers on scouts matter very little since the weapon archetype has the highest primary range when compared to the other weapon classes. Again, go with whatever suits you. Stability may not be important to you, and I've tried a certain 0 point with the feather mag roll in PvP, and it has been largely successful. Third rolls are sort of limited, but I'm going to attempt to cover them the best I can with my experience using them in play. Hidden Hand doesn't make too much sense when running it when compared to the other front rolls. If you run it, great. If not, pass on it. Army of One is really interesting. So since scouts will net you unassisted kills in both PvP and PvE, it could be useful to get your grenades and melees back a little faster. Personally, if you are a solo player in PvP or PvE, run this one. The teams I play with in PvP largely don't know what team shot means, and chances are the randoms you will play with won't team shot either. Could be very useful. Outlaw can be very useful in certain situations, and I've got nothing bad to say against it. If you like it, run it. If not, go ahead and pass on it. Now, Third Eye is a joke, and I'm going to give you a disclaimer here. If you run it, I have nothing against you or how you play, but you have this thing called a mini-map in the top left corner that should be something you're using pretty much the entire time you are playing. One eye on the mini-map and one eye on the game is what I recommend. Now, this may come off as a bit elitist, and it is, because I think the hard truth is much more effective than the white truth. This goes back to my days as BF, as Halo Competitive didn't have mini-maps, but BF comp matches had the mini-map, which was devastated for both callouts and proper positioning. We didn't have a gun perk that held our hand. You may see me and other players doing this during gameplay, going in and out of the scope to check minimap position of enemies when hard scoping effectively eliminates the need for Third Eye. Simply, don't be a potato. Zen Moment is useful if you don't have that middle stability barrel roll or the weapon you're running has low stability to start with, like the Gillian's Demise. It can be useful, and I know players that run it on their scouts in both PvE and PvP and do wonders. And remember, the Vision of Confluence does have Zen Moment on it. Spray and play is another no-go in my opinion. Mag dumping shouldn't really be done or be occurring with scouts except in PvE. And again, it's not particularly useful when you can run an arm piece or gauntlet that increases scout rifle reloads. I'd leave this one up to you, but remember, you still have crowd control and Firefly to compete with. Which leads us into crowd control and Firefly. They're about even in my book, although crowd control will get more use out of both PvP and PvE than Firefly. Firefly is mainly a PvE perk, and while it may proc occasionally, in PvP. I can count on one finger the amount of times I've killed someone with Firefly. Crowd control, in the other hand, is awesome for PvP. Take this 0 point for example. Normally a 4-shot headshot. When crowd control procs, it becomes a 3-shot headshot. You can see the viability here. Again, scouts are a fickle beast, not often seen in PvP, and for the right reasons. In close quarters, they are cumbersome and difficult to compensate for. However, with the right roles and proper positioning, you can be devastating with them. Again, that argument can almost be made for any weapon, but let's just say it only applies to scout rifles. The final recommendation here for PvE and PvP rules is this: rodeo and full auto in column 1, high caliber, maybe explosive rounds, and a stability barrel in column 2, crowd control, army of 1, and firefly in column 3. As always, I'm not stating this as law. I'm not God's gift to gaming, so don't treat it that way in the comments. Just, if you have criticism, feel free to voice it. But I do stand by my elitist statement on Third Eye. I want to hear your rules on scouts that you enjoy, and I'm always willing to try certain new setups that may stand out. More videos throughout the month, and yes, I am trying to work on a lore video, although I am very lazy and a bit of a potato. And if you want to see my bald head on stream, head over to the Planet Destiny stream. There will be a link in the description below. I stream Monday through Friday, starting from 6 or 7 Pacific Standard PM, going to 8 to 9, respectively, give or take. Sometimes I stream earlier, later, whatever. If you want to see me and say what's up, feel free. It'd be cool to see you guys in that stream channel. That will do it for me. You guys are awesome people. I hope you guys are having a great week, great weekend. I love you all. Peace.